Good morning, friends. I want to update you on my first missionary journey. When I first started this project, I did not have any idea how it was going to turn out or how people are going to react to my visiting them, knocking on their doors. But I was quite frightened to start with because I didn't know the outcome, but I thought that God wanted me to do this. So you were probably wondering what has happened since. Well, I have some really good news to you because at first I had reached only 4 homes. Now, some of these I have visited a second time. My neighbor across the street, I don't see him very often, but I left his wife a copy of my book, and I don't know if he's much of a reader, but the last time I saw him, he went out of the way to tell me that he was reading my book at the present time. So it's nice to know that somebody is reading them. I'm giving them a copy of Discovering the Secret of Happy Life. And this has been a very productive venture. I My first day out, I contacted 4 people. The weather was pretty bad, so I tried another day, and it wasn't the best day of the week to do it. It seems like I'm the only one in my whole block that shovels out his driveway. So it was quite risky business for me to walk in these driveways that are all icy and full of snow. So but I managed to visit in my next venture 4 or 5 more homes. And since that time, I have covered every house on my block in my neighborhood, except for 2 I have never been able to find at home or answering their doors. So pray for me. I'm hoping for better weather when I find people outside and working in the yards and stuff. And so that might be a better way to do this. But this venture has been very encouraging. Let me tell you why. My next time out, I visited and I knocked on 4 more homes of people I'd never met before. Another week later, I venture forth and got to visit 2 more. So up until now, I have visited every house on my street except for 2. Now, my next door neighbor, I have not been able to see for a while. She works strange hours, so I left her a copy on her inside her door because I know she would read it. So a couple weeks ago, before she got to work, I went out there to talk to her, and she was so excited about what I'm doing. She says, "I really agree with everything you're doing here." She says, "I think that's really wonderful." So I have about 3 or 4 people that have responded very positively to this effort. Now, since that time, I have contacted everyone in our neighborhood, and I have given away 7 more books. Actually, nine more books. And a couple of days ago, there was one family I visited prior. I thought I would call back on them, and when I visited them, they invited me in their house. Come to find out, the lady, she liked to listen to Charles Stanley, and Roger Sage, he owns the business. He owned the slaughterhouse business, but he just retired and sold it to somebody else. So since that time, I've been able to visit Roger and his wife, and they were the other day when I visited them, they asked me to come in and we talked and yeah, friends, it's really interesting. I tell everyone that I'm praying for their health and their safety and for their happiness. Now, those are just general prayer items, but I do remember them every day. If I don't remember them at night before I go to bed, I remember in the morning when I wake up. But I try to be faithful and praying for them every day. And the interesting matter is, in this home I visited on Saturday, they opened up and shared some things with me. And, when people share things with you have more reasons to pray for them. So I went back and recorded some things that I discovered. I went to the Sage's Meat Market, the slaughterhouse that was taken over from Roger, and those people really responded positively. I gave them a copy of my book, and I talked to them. Found out one of the girls just had a baby. I didn't even know she was pregnant, so I found that she just had a baby. Two people in our block have just recently had new babies. So I'm getting out and visiting the people and finding things about them. And the more I find out about them, the more things I have to pray about. It's really an exciting matter. I uh, I need prayer for the two people I haven't been able to contact, and pray for the ones I have, because there seems to be a very great interest. And the thought occurred to me, and I'm not here trying to build a church or start a church or anything like that. But yesterday, as I was thinking about all these things, the thought occurred to me that wouldn't it be nice? And I think I have met about 4 or 5 Christians so far, or those who have a Christian interest or a Bible interest. I said, wouldn't it be nice if they could consent to it, that we could meet once a month or once a week to pray for each other in our neighborhood? I think maybe perhaps 3 or 4 people might do that. I'm not sure. It's something I might put on. And what I would do also, I would share with them about how to read the Bible. You know, you may think that's a simple matter, but I think one of the problems we have in the church today is people do not know how to read the scriptures. I mean, they're reading it randomly, but it's kind of superficial reading. And the more I study the scriptures and understand, the more I'm recognizing people who know very little about it. Uh, I was listening to a man that I enjoy listening to, Alan Jackson, on TV the other day. He's a good preacher, and I like what he has to say. But I noticed that he was quoting from the book of Isaiah. And I'm discovering by writing this book of Isaiah how many people use messages from Isaiah, but never really get into finding what the book is all about. And so I'm able to see, as popular a book as Isaiah is, very few people have really constructed and written a book to help people to understand it. And by doing this, I'm beginning to understand. For instance, I was listening to a passage the other day, and as I was writing, I warned the people that when you read Isaiah, we need to be careful that we don't read it with New Testament eyes. And that's what everybody does. They uh they look at the fulfillment of the coming of Jesus as they read Isaiah. But when you're reading Isaiah, you need to realize that these people to whom Isaiah was writing didn't know who Jesus was. They didn't know he was coming or what he was going to do when he came. When they read these passages in chapters 9 and 11 and 53, they didn't know that referred to Jesus. This is to the Jewish mind, these were completely different. And most of those prophecies that we use to show that they're messianic prophecies had a purpose behind them. For instance, in chapter 9, the people were about to go into a dark period of captivity in Assyria. And the promise was that while they were facing this situation, a darkness would arise out of light. And so that messianic prophecy was good. But you hear very few people talking about the context and how these passages were given and what was the situation to which God was speaking. Who were these people and what were the problems they were facing? So by carefully analyzing and put together this book of Isaiah, I am understanding that a lot of people don't understand the context of all these verses they're quoting from this book. They think they're quoting from Isaiah, but they're not understanding who they were spoken to, when they were spoken, for what purpose, and what promise there was uh, to fulfill them. And that's important. For instance, in chapters 49 through the end of the book, this portion of scripture talks about after they're delivered from captivity, what they can expect to happen. Chapters 1 through 39 deals with the situation that led up to their captivity. But chapters 40 through 66 deal with the new Jerusalem that is going to come and the new hope that God is going to give to them once they're delivered from Babylonian captivity. But when you see people quoting from Isaiah, they're not familiar with the background of these verses they're quoting. And so they are quoting them from New Testament thinking. When you study Isaiah, you need to understand the context to which it was spoken. So I'm finding out that as you study the scriptures, you begin to see new things. So as one lady said to me, "Oh, I love the book of Isaiah." Charles Stanley quotes from that quite a bit, or he teaches from that. And he might, I haven't read, I haven't listened to him. He just passed away, so I'm not too sure that he's keeping things in their order or not. But the only thing people know about Isaiah is what they hear somebody preach about. Like, for instance, Isaiah 40:31, they that wait upon the Lord shall. That's a popular verse that people use quite a bit. And God uses that. I know that. But when you study scriptures in their context, they take on a different meaning than what we try to make them say sometimes. So as I visit with people and talk to them, I'm getting these reactions from them, and they're telling me certain things that they're finding out. And so when I hear that people are like to listen to Charles Stanley, I said, well, there's a second book I'm giving them, Feed the Flock. So I've been able to give 2 or 3 of those books away as well in my neighborhood. So these doors are opening up as I go back and visit. There are new opportunities to talk to people, and as I talk to them and they open up and share things with me, and I go back and put them in I made up a prayer list for everybody in my block so I won't forget their names and who their children are. And so I'm getting more and more information from them to put into their prayer calendar that I make for them. So I'm doing that. But maybe someday we can get together as maybe 5 or 6 or maybe 7 or 8 would be willing to get together once a week or once a month just to pray for the people in our neighborhood. And And that would be nice. You don't have to worry about they're born again. Believe me, if they want to read the scriptures and they want to pray, I'm not going to worry about if they're saved or not, because unsaved people don't like to do that kind of stuff. So there's a new way of seeing things. But as we gather together at a prayer meeting, maybe we could get together as a group, and maybe it would inspire that I could train the people how to read the Bible, and there may be some people that might, as we come together, they will start sharing their thoughts as we have this prayer meeting and gathering together, and who knows, we might wind up being a church. I thought of call it Fairview Tabernacle or Fairview Chapel or something like that. But keep it out of the denominational thing and make it available so that everybody wants to be part of it. So you might want to pray for that. You know, people say that sounds like a crazy idea, but somebody has to have it. Churches are not born out of non-ideas or people not thinking about it. So these seed ideas begin with little things like I'm sharing with you. Now, another interesting thing happened as I was going to visit this couple who were interested in Charles Stanley. I brought them I promised I'd bring a book on Feed the Flock. So I went there yesterday and I walked down here and I met another man. He was visiting one of the other guys I had given the book to, and they always everybody knows me because I walk down the street every day with my puppy. So the puppy catches a lot of attention. Sometimes he stops traffic and walks out in the middle of the street, and and they have to stop for him. And I'm not so sure he's too popular that way, but I've been putting him on the leash lately, and he seems to be doing better, staying in the roads, staying off the roads, and obeying a lot better. So they're seeing some profit, some things that way. But when I was walking home the other day, one guy said, "Are you looking for your dog?" It just so happened that when I went to visit the people, they invited me in. Of course, the dog decided to go home, which is nice. He knows his way back. So this guy said to me, "Are you looking for your dog?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, he just went by." So, so he came and shook my hand, and I said, are you Craig's father?" He said, "No, I'm his friend." So he introduced himself to me, told me his name, and I went back and memorized his name and his last name and went home and write it down so I wouldn't forget it. But it's interesting. He shook my hand. He says, "I just finished reading your book that I gave to his friend." So, friends, just we just don't know how God's going to work it. The doors that God is going to open. But I want to update you to what has happened thus far. Now, there's some people, I'm sure in my mind, they're not Christians, but I think when I go and share with them, I've been telling them when I retired from my last job, I started praying for the people that I worked with every day. There were people I'm meeting new people every day that needed me to pray for them. So I prayed for them. One day at work, a Muslim man came to me. His name was Muhammad, and he was having some problems. His wife was sick, and he's kind of worried about her. So I prayed with that Muslim man at work. I just stopped. He's going to replace me when I retired. So I just took time to pray for him and told him I'd be praying for his wife. And he seemed to be very appreciative of that. So, friends, when you start praying for the people you work with, they're your ministry, they're your opportunities. If they never come to church, you are the only church they have. And it's amazing when you start praying for those people you work with, you'll be surprised the number of doors that open up for you to be a witness to them. Now, I don't recommend witnessing to people anymore. I used to do that. And I think that scares people and it closes doors rather than opening them. And who wants to make quick mission quick Christians by giving them some high pressure messages they can respond to right away? We don't know if they're really Christians. We get all these born again Christians that never make any progress. They don't go to church, they don't go to the prayer meeting, and they don't read their Bible, but they're all saved and going to heaven when they die. So I don't think this is the type of Christianity we're trying to support. So I think we need to be careful when we witness to people. It's more important to be a witness and have a message and be praying for people and be genuine. We don't have to put on this churchy act or this Christian act. Be a Christian. Let people know who you are. Let them know you're genuinely concerned about them. And you keep going back as their friend. You don't have to worry about preaching at them. I don't worry about that anymore. I believe the Holy Spirit's working. There'll be opportunities, and there certainly has been. So I want you to know that this effort has not been in vain, and I haven't contacted all the people yet. I know a man down the street I tried to contact, and I think he's home, but he just doesn't answer his door. So someday he might be out in his yard working or doing something, and I might be able to see him that way. But some of these doors close, and he just lost his wife or his girlfriend. I don't know what she was, but anyhow, he's by himself now. She died of cancer. So, and I hadn't had a chance to talk to them and be with them. So these are doors that I think that would be helpful to open if it was possible. So I'm finding a lot about the people on my street by the people who live there and the people to whom I visit. So there are many opportunities. I got a young couple I want to give another book to, and I know they'll respond with it positive, but I just can't get them to open the door unless they're sleeping or whatever it is. But anyhow, uh, when you start going cold turkey like this, if people don't know who you are, they just gonna keep the door shut. But I'm finding ways of reaching people and seeing new people like Derek that came to me yesterday. I never thought in my wildest dreams that someone outside my street would be reading my book that I gave to somebody else. So if you never venture to do anything, nothing will happen. Am I trying to start a church? No, not really, but that's what the purpose of the missionary is. A missionary goes and he works himself out of the job. He goes and trains the people. He starts a church and he trains them to do the work that he's doing, and he leaves and goes somewhere else. Well, why don't we use those same principles in the church? We have a lot of churches that can't find pastors. Well, maybe they're doing it the wrong way. Maybe the churches need to start training their own pastors, but who's going to do that? You have to have somebody like the pastor that can do that. But I'm finding out the pastors don't even understand sometimes why they are called and for what purpose. They don't know that the purpose of the pastor is to train, equip the saints to do the ministry. And there's not too many people doing that. You remember Timothy? Paul the apostle, he never stayed 24 years in the church and pastored the church. What he did was he trained Timothy. And when he left, Timothy was pastoring at Ephesus. And one of the last words that Paul said to Timothy was, "And the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, commit thou to faithful men who shall be able to teach others also." So what Paul was telling Timothy is, do what I do. The things you have seen me do, do yourself. What is that? Equip people to train other people. somebody has to be the teacher to start with, but what are you teaching them to do? Are they reproducing and uh, producing spiritual grandchildren? Friends, if the church was active in training its people to be ministers wherever they are, they would never have to worry about being without a pastor because they would be doing the job while they're training them. And friends, I think the church is failing because somehow or other it's not being taught in the schools. I happen to be a student of a man who was a missionary while I was at Prairie. It was Mr. Cook was his name, and he taught missionary principles and practices. And although that was not one of the main courses at Prairie, I found that when I got into the ministry, it was one of the most valuable courses I've ever taken, especially when I had churches that needed that kind of training. So don't undervalue the work of missions. If you're having trouble with a pastor, maybe somebody needs to take the matter in hand and start training the people how to do the work of the ministry. Who knows? You might have some preachers there, and they won't have to go to Bible school because they've been taught properly by leaders who know how to do the job. So I'm starting to preach now, but I want to update you on this and what's happening. It's really exciting. I I'm going back again, second time to some places, and I'm just going to let them know, look, I'm still praying for you. Do you have some family members I should know about? Would you like me to pray for your family? I might start asking them, do they have any children, what their names are, and I've done that with the family already. So I have about 30 people on my prayer list that I can pray for. And so the more I visit them and talk to them, the more I get to understand some of their needs and even some of the things they don't talk about. You come to realize one lady, she's having a problem with her eyes. Well, I can identify with that. And another man told me his son just wrote a book, a technical manual. See, so he was interested in my writing books and how they did it. And so uh, you just don't realize until you start talking to people what things you have in common. And by doing this, you get to know something about them and you could be a blessing to them. Well, I guess I talked long enough in this, but I wanted to follow up on this idea of my first missionary journey. And I want you to know what's happened since. Perhaps maybe some of you might want to try this. I can help you. I can provide the my little booklets for you. I'll purchase some to give to you if you want to give them away to somebody. I think they're better than tracts personally because people are actually reading them. So I can help you. And if you want to try that in your own neighborhood, give it a shot. You might find that there are a lot of people responsive that need somebody in their neighborhood who's praying for them. I mean, if nothing else, just think a person you say you're praying for has a near accident and it comes into mind, look, God must have been with me. Somebody must be praying for me. And at least they can put a finger on one person that is. So when you say you're praying for them, make sure you do. And I think God will honor that and it will bring more opportunities for you to do the work. So I want you to know this little simple venture that was kind of scary to start with is now getting to be quite exciting. So just think what you could do in your neighborhood. Well, I'll close for now, but we'll update you another time as things progress, or if even if they get worse and fall apart. I'll let you know about that too. Well, see you later.